So today we will be tackling the meta on Breeze and breaking it all down, and this one, to be honest, will be fairly simple because Breeze is perhaps the map across all of the maps that has been kind of the most figured out maybe, or is the most stale in terms of what people are playing in the meta. And going back a couple months, it was much the same, perhaps even worse, because in Copenhagen there were only really two families of comps. I mean, you might even say this is the same family of comp that teams were playing, and that is basically a chamber comp or a Cypher comp with maybe a KO, maybe a Skye. And so basically we're just going to break down the slight differences between having a KO and a Skye or having a chamber and a Cypher, because going back to Copenhagen, this is really all there was, and these two comps essentially were the only comps played by multiple teams at that tournament. So let's start off by talking about one of the bigger debates that has lasted a while here on Breeze, the debate between Skye versus KO on this map. And obviously with the Skye and KO changes, maybe that will also have a bit of an impact, but on Breeze, I don't think that'll make too much of a difference with the changes coming to those agents. But let's talk about the attacking side first and how the attacking side kind of works for both Skye and KO. We're going to take a look at DRX here on the attacking side because they are a team that have stuck with the Skye for a very long time, and they have a very particular way of attacking this map. What they like to do with the Skye in the Sova as opposed to the KO in the Sova is be very reliant on their Jet, who in this instance is going to be Buzz. What we're going to get here is we're going to get the pop of the Skye ult that is mostly going to come towards B, and they're going to go for this B split. Now, this is something that DRX really like to do, where they send, whether it be the Skye ult or a Skye dog and the Sova drone in at the same time, right? Just a bombardment of utility in onto the site. And what that means is when Buzz is going to dash in onto the site, those players on site, right, they've got a drone coming at them, they've got a Skye dog coming at them, they've got Skye ult coming at them, whatever it might be, right? They're flashed maybe as well, right? There's just a ton of utility bombarding them at the same time so that Buzz can get that one kill. And let's just see this in action here as we take a look at this round. So in comes the Viper wall, the Skye ults are coming out, we're sending it down, and we're going to end up in this position here where Aspas is retreating, Buzz dashes in, and he's going to manage to come out of this smoke and find a kill just there on less. But if we take a look at the map and what's going on, and actually they had a bit of a clever idea here as well, DRX, where the second man essentially to try and help Buzz and maybe get that kill instead is actually RB on the chamber, but then RB is actually going to TP back as he missed a shot or whatever. And so you can see that basically it's just Buzz on his own, right? They had a ton of utility in there as well to help support him, but Buzz for this moment in time is completely unsupported. He has to get that kill on less, otherwise it kind of all falls apart for DRX. But this is in contrast to how a lot of teams will use KO, where KO will often be that second man in and be right behind the Jet, or even with the Jet in certain circumstances, like this one for Optic versus Loud, where Optic are going to use the KO ult in this instance and come through mid. You're often seeing that the KO ult now is being used instead of in A main, it's either coming from, like it is here from Optic, through mid, or a very common one is to come through halls, pop the KO ult out here, right, just so that those people who are in mid, those defenders, are also getting suppressed and they can't help out their teammates either. So that's a very common thing, and Optic in this instance, they're going to do a little split here. They send in the drone, Aspas has to drop off, and then in comes the KO ult, and you can see they're starting to come in, but you see that the spacing between the agents isn't quite like DRX, where, at a time we're getting left alone. The KO is right there, and Marv is actually taking contact here as the KO nade came in towards Victor there, and so he couldn't help. Optic managed to get the site, and they will manage to win this round. So you see the slight differences where the Skye is kind of more in really fully on that Jet and helping that Jet win their first fight, whereas with the KO perhaps it's a bit more balanced and you have a bit more support if you are the Jet. If that Jet dies, it's not the end of the world, and the KO can maybe get a trade of that kill. Now, on the defensive side, obviously what Skye will provide you is a bit more information overall with the dog and with the flashes telling you where those players might be. So you get a little bit more info from the Skye, but one thing that you get big time from the KO, and this is something DRX struggle with as well, is you get a very crucial knife, the KO knife that comes in deep towards A main. As soon as you hear this drone, what you'll often see is the KO is sitting somewhere like Marv is here. As soon as you hear that Sova drone, you knife down here, you knife make sure that this drone can't see anything, and you suppress everyone. And that's what's going to happen here. And again, this is a bit of a problem for DRX, that they are, very reliant on Buzz, as they will be here. But if Buzz dies, there goes that suppress, in comes a KO nade as well. And it doesn't manage to stop all the utility at this point, but again, it's the exact same thing where, because Stax has been throwing out those flashes and whatnot, he's a bit further back, and Buzz again is kind of completely all alone. And now that they're all suppressed as well, no one can help him for this fight, and so Ye is just going to be able to manage to get that first kill on Buzz, and then the kind of whole exec somewhat falls apart from there, right? They end up in this advantageous situation for Optic here, as you know, yeah, sure, they might have to give up the site a bit, but they're in a 4v3, they're feeling pretty comfortable, and they will go on to win this round. But then we have the other main debate on Breeze, which is Cypher versus Chamber. Now, I'm sure most of you can understand why Chamber is there, right? Chamber very strong, you just peek angles, right? You get an op, you're very strong on defensive side, right? Like, that I'm sure you can understand. So why might a team pick a Cypher instead? Well, I think there's a couple reasons. One is, I think that the idea of going for a double op, where you have both the Jet and the Chamber opping at the same time, I think it's had mixed results. Some teams have been able to make it work, but a lot of others haven't been able to make it work, you know, when you have enough creds to actually do that. And so there might be a bit of redundancy there, that you feel like, you know, well, we can just power up our Jet and have a Jet op instead. Might not be quite as strong as the Chamber, but the Cypher will give us something a bit different. And what the Cypher will often give you is, you know, more information, of course, with the extra traps and whatnot, but also some ratty setups like this that just kind of change the dynamic a bit more as well, right? If you've got an aggressive opper on one side of the map, and then you have, you know, these kind of deeper, rattier setups from the Cypher as well, it just creates a bit of a push and pull where you can maneuver them to either side of the map as well, and, you know, create a bit of a different perspective for your opponent. Whereas a Jet Chamber, you might be expecting, you know, oh, well, we're going to see more aggression, we're going to see more peeking in general, you know, and more aggressive angles hold by the defensive side. And you can see that in this instance, if you are someone like Les, who has, you know, a ton of different Cypher setups, and you have, you know, a lot of experience playing on the Cypher, and you know how to play, you know, you might end up with rounds like this, right, where Optic are going to go for this B exec, and they're going to get absolutely destroyed by Les and his Cypher utility here. As you see, Marv gets hit by the camera, and then gets into the trap wire as well. The cage goes up, Les manages to get that kill, and he's just going to keep going as well, as he manages to get another one there for the side of Loud. And you see that he's a bit panicky there, but his camera tells him that he's okay. There is no one close, and yeah, they just completely mop up on this round. This is actually an overtime. This is a very important round. They get the Cypher ult off as well in overtime. Now, on the attacking side, between a Cypher and a Chamber, generally they'll be playing the same role of the Lurker role. Again, the Cypher is perhaps giving you a bit more on this side, right, with a bit more information overall. You can see here, like in this round, for instance, against Optic, again, Les is set up, you know, where you've got this deep camera to be able to see anyone either coming down mid or the top of nest as well. You've got the extra trip as well, just to give you a bit more stability in terms of those flank controls. And yeah, they're both normally going to be playing in the Lurk role, right, coming up towards these mid areas. In this instance, Les is actually going to go back towards B, and they find themselves in a 5v3 here, do Loud, but Les is going to be able to make it work as he punishes Victor just peeking out there on his own, has the Cypher ult again, so, you know, just can reveal where everyone is, which on a big map like this, right, can give you a pretty big advantage. He sees that Crashies is kind of completely alone, decides to sneak in, manages to win that fight. Okay, he misses the cage, but either way, he's kind of completely opened up this entire map, and now because Pancada, you know, knew where those other players were as well, he's got that extra info from the Cypher ult. He can then go and clean up, know where these players are coming from, and they are going to manage to eventually kill Ye and win this round for Loud. But if we fast forward over to Champs, we actually did see one other comp come out of the blue that was played by multiple teams, and that was the Fnatic Breach comp, which completely came out of nowhere, where you are replacing that Skye or KO for a Breach instead, and you're replacing the Jet for a Neon as well. And obviously from the Breach, you are losing some of that information that the Skye and KO can provide, but you're also adding in, you know, some weird text that no one has ever seen before. There was some really cool flashes in this game as well. Like in this round number 3 against Furia, what we're going to see is they're going to send a Breach stun up here. There's eventually going to be like a Breach flash from here that's coming in just there. They're going to get the Neon wall up here as well. They're going to do a Viper wall across there from within this Neon wall. That's going to let Boaster sit in this corner here whilst the Neon comes up here. Dirk is going to come up there. It's kind of a crazy exec. I'll just show you on the map. It's probably easier. So in comes a stun down here, right? Neon stun across there. We got the wall going up. You see that Boaster's going to do his Viper wall from inside the Neon wall. Dirker is coming up here as well. You've got the drone that was actually suppressed by the KO coming in from B main as well. But then from this deeper position here, you know, the Breach is going to be able to flash through these walls and get flashes over here as well to set up these fights to be a bit more favorable for the side of Fnatic. And, well, as they start to come in, Dirk actually does lose the first fight, but Alfia is feeling it, and so he manages to get those kills. We also get a deeper dart there on site as well. And even though Alfia is going to get tagged up by an enemy dart and die, you will also now have the Boaster in this position, right? This very strong angle right here, where he's able to get a free kill as well, and Fnatic will go on to win the round. Now, this comp overall, I think, you know, is a good surprise comp. Does it have like a lot of staying power and a lot of legs? I'm not too sure about that one, because once you kind of figure out where those breach flashes are coming in, where the stuns normally are, right, there was a lot of Fnatic using the breach here towards Hall here, where he'd be sitting in this angle, and you can get a flash actually through there and through that wall. But once you've kind of figured that out, and you know how you want to deal with like this neon wall, for instance, you know, I don't think it's going to have the most legs overall as a comp. Now, I should say that there were, you know, some other comps tried as well, but these were the only comps tried by multiple teams. Obviously, Team Liquid were picking the Phoenix instead, but that's basically just Liquid picking the Phoenix, and I don't really think they got too much value out of it in comparison to a Jett, to be honest. And so really, there hasn't been that much of a meta shift overall on Breeze from... I mean, going even before Copenhagen, we could go back a long time on Breeze, and there hasn't really been a meta shift in a long time. And so that ended up with the agent pick rates here. In fact, Breeze, there was barely any games of Breeze. There's only 5 games of Breeze played at Copenhagen full stop. So, you know, it was kind of a bit of a weird one where, you know, Pickrates picked Neon here in the final. And so that, you know, brought the pick rate up to 10%, but that's actually only a 1 out of 10. Same for Breach. Pickrates just went with that absurd comp. You know, the double duelist, no sentinel comp, like a really wacky comp overall. But if we take a look at some of the more, you know, serious agents, we can see, again, there was this kind of fade trend in Copenhagen, like trying out the fade. Is it good on Breeze? That was still when I think people were figuring out what was going on. And so, you know, some teams pick fade, but now everyone has decided Silver is the way to go. Stick with Silver. You can see that Jett as well. You know, some teams weren't going with Jett, going with other duelists, or even no duelists in some case. Now they're going back to Jett. It seems like, you know, again, Jett is becoming kind of the mainstay there. There actually was a big shift away from Skye and towards KO. Now, again, this is due to a smaller sample size. DRX were actually, you know, quite a few of the games on Breeze at Copenhagen, and they always pick Skye. So, you know, again, that could be a bit misleading overall, but maybe a couple more teams are leaning towards the KO, and that suppression, I think, particularly on the defensive side, can be very useful. And then we got this Chamber Cypher debate, which hasn't changed too much overall. Although I will say that the Cypher did have some very excellent games at Champions, and we saw, you know, successful teams. Generally, Cypher had a better win rate than Chamber at Champions with teams that pick Cypher, and most notably Loud doing very well as well with less on that Cypher. When taking a look at the pick rates for the different comps as well, you can see that the Chamber comps overall, you know, we're still doing pretty well. I mean, if you add in the Team Liquid for the Phoenix difference, that would go up even more for champs overall. So, you know, most teams still sticking with the general Chamber comps on Breeze overall. You can see 5 different teams, and you could potentially add Team Liquid to that as well. For the Cypher comps, you can see there was a slight increase overall, and actually 4 different teams did use Cypher comps, which kind of tells you that there is perhaps a bit of a trend, you know, coming towards that Cypher in terms of different teams using him. And then the Fnatic Breach comp, you know, Optic did try it out, and obviously we got Fnatic trying it as well, but I don't think that that will have a lot of staying power, as I think it's a good one-off pick, but, you know, to get a bit of surprise, but other than that, not too much. And so the meta on Breeze seems pretty stale. It has been for quite some time, and that's no great surprise. Hopefully, maybe with the new agent, I hope is a competitor to Viper that might shake things up, whether that's playing both of them if we do get a competitor for Viper overall, or, you know, maybe that agent has better combos with something else. I have no idea. I don't even know if that will be the case, but I really do hope so, so that we might get a bit of a shake up on the meta on Breeze.